Men are moved by two levers only: fear and self-interest. Napoleon Bonaparte: influence is not about being liked. That is the delusion peddled to the naive. The world is not a popularity contest, and those who treat it as such are destined to be manipulated. We are not concerned with the fleeting affections of the crowd, but with the levers of control. True influence is about understanding the desires and fears of others and using that knowledge to direct their actions. It is about possessing something they need or crave and making them believe that you are the only one who can provide it. This is not a gentle art, but a strategic calculation, a chess game played with human beings as pieces. The myth of the charismatic leader, the one who wins hearts and minds through sheer force of personality, is a comforting fiction. Charisma is merely a tool, and a flawed one at that. It is unreliable, dependent on the whims of the audience, and easily counterfeited. Real influence lies in the architecture of power, in the systems and structures that dictate behavior. It is about controlling the information flow, shaping the narrative, and setting the rules of the game. Those who rely on charisma alone are at the mercy of those who understand these deeper principles. Consider the difference between a street performer and a central banker. The performer may be skilled, charming, and captivating, but their influence is limited to the duration of their act. The banker, on the other hand, wields power that affects the lives of millions, often without them even being aware of it. The banker understands the flow of capital, the levers of the economy, and the psychology of markets. They do not need to be liked, only obeyed. This is the distinction between superficial charm and genuine influence. The pursuit of influence requires a cold, detached perspective. Sentimentality is a weakness, empathy a liability. We must be willing to see people as they are, not as we wish them to be, to recognize their flaws, their vulnerabilities, and their hidden desires. Only then can we begin to understand how to move them, how to persuade them, and ultimately, how to control them. This is not a pleasant truth, but it is a necessary one. Those who shy away from it are destined to be pawns in someone else's game. The world is filled with those who seek to control us, to manipulate us for their own ends. Politicians, corporations, even our friends and family members. They use various tactics, from subtle flattery to outright coercion. The only way to defend ourselves against these forces is to understand how they operate, to become students of human behavior, masters of strategy, and practitioners of influence ourselves, not for the sake of domination, but for the sake of self-preservation. To influence, one must first understand the playing field. This means dissecting the power dynamics at play, identifying the key players, and assessing their motivations. It means recognizing the unspoken rules and the hidden agendas that drive their actions. It is a process of constant observation, analysis, and adaptation. The landscape of power is ever-shifting, and those who fail to keep pace are quickly left behind. The most effective form of influence is often invisible. It is the power that operates in the shadows, shaping perceptions and directing behavior without leaving a trace. It is the art of suggestion, the subtle manipulation of language, and the strategic deployment of information. Those who master this art can achieve their goals without ever having to resort to force or coercion. They are the puppeteers of the world, pulling the strings from behind the curtain. The pursuit of influence is not without its risks. It can be a lonely path, fraught with moral compromises and ethical dilemmas. It requires a certain ruthlessness, a willingness to make difficult choices, and a capacity to live with the consequences. But for those who seek to shape their own destiny, to control their own lives, and to leave their mark on the world, it is a necessary path. It is the path to true sovereignty. Do not mistake influence for mere manipulation. While the line between the two can be blurred, the intention behind the act is crucial. Manipulation seeks to exploit others for personal gain, often at their expense. Influence, on the other hand, can be used to achieve mutually beneficial outcomes, to guide others towards a shared goal, and to create positive change in the world. The choice is ours. We can use our knowledge of human behavior to dominate and control, or we can use it to empower and uplift. The cultivation of influence is a lifelong pursuit. It requires constant learning, relentless self-improvement, and an unwavering commitment to mastering the art of human interaction. It is a journey that demands both intellect and intuition, both strategy and empathy. But for those who are willing to dedicate themselves to the task, the rewards are immeasurable. They will gain the ability to shape their own lives, to influence the world around them, and to achieve their full potential. They will become the architects of their own destiny. Influence is the subtle art of bending reality to your will, a process that begins not with grand pronouncements, but with the quiet observation of the human heart. To wield influence effectively, one must first understand the intricate web of motivations, desires, and fears that drive human behavior. This understanding is not gleaned from textbooks or lectures, but from the careful study of individuals in their natural habitat, observing their interactions, deciphering their unspoken needs, and recognizing the hidden vulnerabilities that lie beneath the surface. Only then can one begin to craft a strategy tailored to the specific psychology of the target, a strategy that resonates with their deepest aspirations and assuages their most pressing anxieties. This is not about imposing your will, but about aligning your goals with their perceived self-interest. Consider the power of framing. Every situation, every idea can be presented in multiple ways, each eliciting a different emotional response. A shrewd influencer understands this and carefully chooses the frame that will be most persuasive to their audience. If you wish to motivate action, frame the situation as an opportunity for gain, a chance to acquire something valuable. If you wish to instill caution, frame it as a threat, a potential loss that must be avoided. The facts may remain the same, but the perception of those facts can be radically altered by the way they are presented. This is the essence of strategic communication, the art of shaping reality through carefully chosen words and carefully crafted narratives. The key to wielding influence lies in understanding the delicate balance between logic and emotion. While reason may guide our conscious decisions, it is often emotion that dictates our gut reactions, our spontaneous judgments, and our ultimate choices. A skilled influencer appeals to both aspects of the human psyche, presenting a rational argument that is supported by emotional appeals. They understand that people are more likely to be persuaded by a message that resonates with their values, their beliefs, and their sense of identity. Therefore, they craft their arguments in a way that aligns with the target's existing worldview, reinforcing their sense of self and making them more receptive to the proposed course of action. Furthermore, the true master of influence understands the power of reciprocity. Human beings are inherently social creatures, hardwired to reciprocate acts of kindness and generosity. By offering a genuine benefit to the target, the influencer creates a sense of obligation, a desire to return the favor. This obligation can then be leveraged to achieve the desired outcome. However, it is important to note that this principle must be applied with subtlety and grace. Overt manipulation can backfire, creating resentment and distrust. The most effective acts of reciprocity are those that are perceived as genuine expressions of goodwill, not as calculated attempts to exert control. Another crucial element in the arsenal of the influencer is the cultivation of authority. People are naturally drawn to those who project confidence, competence, and expertise. By establishing oneself as a credible source of information and guidance, one can significantly increase their ability to influence others. This can be achieved through a variety of means, including demonstrating a deep understanding of the subject matter, sharing relevant experiences, and showcasing a track record of success. However, it is important to avoid arrogance or boastfulness, as these can undermine credibility and alienate the target. True authority is not about self-promotion, but about demonstrating a genuine ability to provide value and guidance. Finally, the art of influence requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to adapt. Human behavior is complex and unpredictable, and no strategy is guaranteed to succeed. A skilled influencer is always monitoring the situation, adjusting their approach as needed, and learning from their mistakes. They understand that influence is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process of building relationships, establishing trust, and shaping perceptions. It is a game of subtle maneuvers, calculated risks, and unwavering determination. And in the end, it is the ability to navigate this complex terrain that separates the true masters of influence from the mere pretenders. The capacity to recognize the subtle shifts in power, the unspoken cues of resistance or acceptance, and the opportune moments to advance one's agenda. This awareness is the key to unlocking the potential for profound and lasting influence. Consider the case of a seasoned venture capitalist, a predator in the gilded cage of Silicon Valley. This individual, we'll call him Thorne, understands that true influence isn't about loud pronouncements or aggressive demands. It's about the subtle art of shaping perceptions and manipulating incentives. Thorne rarely invests in a company solely based on its technology or market potential. He invests in the founder, in their ambition, in their vulnerability. He seeks out individuals who possess a burning desire to succeed, but who also harbor a deep-seated insecurity, a hidden fear of failure. These are the people he can mold, the clay he can shape into his desired form. Thorne's initial approach is always one of calculated deference. He listens intently, asks insightful questions, and offers seemingly impartial advice. He positions himself as a mentor, a trusted advisor, a benevolent guide. He builds rapport by mirroring the founder's enthusiasm, echoing their concerns, and subtly reinforcing their sense of self-importance. He understands that people are most susceptible to influence when they feel understood and validated. As the relationship deepens, Thorne begins to introduce subtle suggestions, gently nudging the founder in the direction he desires. He frames his recommendations as objective observations, highlighting potential risks and opportunities that the founder may have overlooked. He uses data and industry trends to support his arguments, creating an illusion of impartiality and scientific rigor. He avoids direct commands or ultimatums, preferring to guide the founder towards his desired outcome through a process of subtle persuasion. Thorne also understands the power of social proof. He strategically introduces the founder to other influential figures in his network, individuals who can further validate his ideas and reinforce his vision. These encounters are carefully orchestrated to create a sense of momentum and inevitability, making it appear as though success is not only possible but guaranteed. He uses the opinions of others as leverage to sway the founder's decisions, subtly diminishing their autonomy and increasing their reliance on his guidance. But Thorne's influence doesn't stop at strategic advice and introductions. He also understands the importance of controlling the narrative. He carefully cultivates his image as a visionary investor, a shrewd dealmaker, and a champion of innovation. He uses media appearances, industry events, and carefully crafted social media posts to reinforce this perception. He understands that people are more likely to trust and follow someone who is perceived as successful and competent. He controls the flow of information, carefully managing the perception of the company's progress and shielding the founder from any negative feedback or criticism. This creates a bubble of illusion, isolating the founder from reality and making them even more dependent on his guidance. And if the founder ever begins to question his advice or assert their independence, Thorne is quick to remind them of the risks involved, the potential for failure, and the sacrifices they have already made. He uses fear as a weapon, preying on their insecurities and reinforcing their dependence on his support. He subtly threatens to withdraw his funding to expose their weaknesses, to sabotage their efforts. He understands that the threat of loss is a powerful motivator, and he is not afraid to use it to maintain his control. In the end, the founder becomes a puppet, dancing to Thorne's tune, driven by a combination of ambition, fear, and a desperate need for validation. Thorne has successfully manipulated their perceptions, shaped their decisions, and ultimately taken control of their company. This is the nature of influence in its most ruthless form, a game of calculated manipulation, strategic maneuvering, and unwavering determination. It is not about persuasion or collaboration, but about domination and control. It's a chess match where the opponent is not just beaten, but completely remade in your image. It demands a deep understanding of human psychology, an ability to exploit vulnerabilities, and a willingness to use any means necessary to achieve your desired outcome. Thorne's actions are a testament to the darker side of human interaction, a stark reminder that influence is not always a force for good. Thorne's success is not simply about overpowering the founder. It is about understanding the subtle weaknesses inherent in human ambition. He recognizes that most people are driven by a desire for validation, a need to feel important and successful. This craving makes them vulnerable to manipulation, particularly when it is masked as support and guidance. The weak crave certainty, and they will readily surrender their autonomy to anyone who offers them a clear path forward, even if that path leads to their own enslavement. They fail to recognize the subtle signs of manipulation, mistaking control for mentorship and dominance for dedication. They are blinded by their own ambition, unable to see that they are being used as pawns in someone else's game. This blindness stems from a fundamental lack of self-awareness, an inability to recognize their own flaws and vulnerabilities. They are so focused on achieving their goals that they fail to consider the potential consequences of their actions, the risks they are taking, and the price they may have to pay. The weak also fall prey to the allure of shortcuts, the promise of quick success without the need for hard work or sacrifice. They believe that they can achieve their goals without putting in the necessary effort, without developing the necessary skills, without paying their dues. They are attracted to those who offer them easy solutions, those who promise to make their dreams come true without requiring them to lift a finger. This reliance on others makes them dependent and vulnerable, leaving them open to exploitation. They fail to understand that true success requires perseverance, resilience, and a willingness to learn from their mistakes. The path to greatness is not paved with shortcuts, but with hard work, dedication, and a constant pursuit of self-improvement. Moreover, the weak often lack the courage to challenge authority, to question the status quo, to stand up for their beliefs. They are afraid of conflict, afraid of rejection, afraid of failure. They prefer to conform to the expectations of others, to follow the crowd, to avoid making waves. This passivity makes them easy to control, as they are unwilling to resist the will of those in power. They fail to recognize that true leadership requires courage, conviction, and a willingness to challenge the established order. The greatest achievements in history have been accomplished by those who dared to question the status quo, those who dared to challenge authority, those who dared to stand up for their beliefs, even in the face of overwhelming opposition. Finally, the weak often lack the foresight to anticipate the consequences of their actions, to see the long-term implications of their decisions. They are focused on the immediate gratification of their desires, without considering the potential repercussions of their choices. They are easily distracted by short-term gains, without realizing that they may be sacrificing their long-term interests. This short-sightedness makes them vulnerable to manipulation, as they are easily led astray by promises of immediate rewards, without considering the potential costs involved. They fail to understand that true success requires a long-term perspective, a willingness to delay gratification, and an ability to anticipate the consequences of their actions. This lack of self-awareness, combined with a craving for validation, a reliance on shortcuts, a fear of conflict, and a lack of foresight, creates a perfect storm of vulnerability that can be exploited by those who seek to control them. Thorne understands these weaknesses, and he uses them to his advantage, carefully crafting his approach to exploit the founder's vulnerabilities. He offers validation, promises shortcuts, avoids conflict, and appeals to their short-sightedness. He understands that the key to influence is not simply about overpowering the other person, but about understanding their weaknesses and exploiting them in a strategic and calculated manner. Thorne begins his campaign by subtly mirroring the founder's own stated values. He echoes their concerns about the company's future, expresses admiration for their past accomplishments, and positions himself as a loyal ally, someone who shares their vision and understands their fears. This mirroring creates a sense of rapport, making the founder feel understood and validated. Thorne avoids direct confrontation, instead focusing on building a foundation of trust and mutual respect. He carefully observes the founder's behavior, paying close attention to their reactions, their body language, and their unspoken desires. He uses this information to tailor his approach, subtly adjusting his message to resonate with the founder's deepest anxieties and aspirations. He understands that people are more likely to be influenced by those they perceive as being similar to themselves, and he uses this knowledge to his advantage. Thorne also recognizes the importance of timing. He knows that the founder is most vulnerable when they are feeling stressed, insecure, or overwhelmed. He waits for the opportune moment, when the founder is most receptive to his influence. He approaches them with a carefully crafted proposal, one that addresses their immediate concerns while subtly advancing his own agenda. He frames his proposal in a way that appeals to the founder's sense of self-importance, portraying it as a way to cement their legacy and ensure the company's continued success. He emphasizes the potential benefits of his proposal while downplaying the potential risks. He understands that people are more likely to take risks when they are feeling desperate or insecure, and he uses this knowledge to his advantage. Thorne is a master of subtle persuasion. He understands that the most effective way to influence someone is not to force them to do something they don't want to do, but to make them believe that they are acting of their own free will. He uses a variety of techniques to achieve this, including framing, anchoring, and priming. He frames his proposals in a way that makes them seem more attractive than they actually are. He anchors his arguments to points of agreement, making it more difficult for the founder to disagree. He primes the founder by subtly planting ideas in their mind, making them more receptive to his proposals later on. Thorne understands the power of narrative. He crafts a compelling story, one that resonates with the founder's emotions and aspirations. He paints a picture of a brighter future, one in which the founder is hailed as a visionary leader, and the company achieves unprecedented success. He uses this narrative to create a sense of hope and optimism, making the founder more willing to embrace his proposals. He understands that people are more likely to be influenced by stories than by facts, and he uses this knowledge to his advantage. Thorne avoids making direct demands. Instead, he presents his proposals as suggestions, offering the founder a range of options to choose from. He makes it clear that he is simply offering his advice, and that the final decision is up to them. This gives the founder a sense of control, making them more likely to accept his suggestions. He understands that people are more likely to resist being told what to do, and he avoids this trap by framing his proposals as options rather than demands. Thorne is patient and persistent. He understands that it takes time to influence someone, and he is willing to invest the necessary effort. He does not expect to achieve his goals overnight. He continues to build rapport, observe the founder's behavior, and refine his approach. He understands that influence is a long game, and he is willing to play the long game to achieve his objectives. He knows that the founder may resist his advances at first, but he is confident that he can eventually win them over with his persistence and his persuasive skills. He understands that the key to success is not to give up, but to keep working at it until he achieves his desired outcome. Thorne anticipates resistance. He knows that the founder may be skeptical of his proposals, and he is prepared to address their concerns. He anticipates their objections and prepares counterarguments in advance. He is able to refute their claims with logic and evidence, while remaining calm and respectful. He understands that the key to overcoming resistance is not to become defensive, but to listen carefully to their concerns and address them in a thoughtful and persuasive manner. Thorne understands the importance of reciprocity. He is always willing to offer help and support to the founder, even when it is not directly related to his own agenda. He understands that people are more likely to reciprocate kindness and generosity, and he uses this principle to his advantage. He builds a sense of obligation, making the founder feel indebted to him. This makes them more likely to grant his requests in the future. He understands that the key to building strong relationships is to give more than you receive, and he applies this principle to his interactions with the founder. Thorn protects his own vulnerabilities. He understands that he is also vulnerable to influence, and he takes steps to protect himself. He is aware of his own biases and weaknesses, and he avoids situations that could expose them. He is careful about whom he trusts, and he does not reveal too much about himself to others. He understands that the key to maintaining control is to be aware of your own vulnerabilities and to take steps to protect them. He knows that the founder may try to manipulate him in return, and he is prepared to resist their attempts. He maintains his composure, avoids emotional reactions, and focuses on his objectives. He understands that the key to resisting influence is to be aware of the tactics being used and to remain grounded in your own values and beliefs. Thorn is a student of human nature, recognizing that influence is not about brute force, but rather a subtle dance of power and psychology.